Good evening and thank you for joining us. City Council got its first look last night at Science North's proposed Thunder Bay Science Centre on the waterfront.
The project comes with an estimated $80 million price tag. Science North is hoping construction will begin as soon as 2025. Vasilios Bellos was at City Hall last night and joins us live in studio with the details. Vasilios?
Thanks, Riley. Science North is still calling Pool 6 the preferred site for its proposed science center, which the agency believes could draw 60,000 people through its doors every year. One of the next steps is determining possible avenues of funding, with a feasibility study plan to determine how much the private sector may be willing to pitch in. The $80 million price tag for the proposed Thunder Bay Science Center was revealed at City Hall last night, with City Council members clearly behind the project.
Any community that has a science center is very, very lucky, and the youth are lucky, and the people, anybody of any age, are lucky to get through there.
The presentation providing updates on the project was made by Science North CEO Ashley LaRose. The agency is projecting a $6 million annual economic impact, with 60,000 visitors estimated to come through the center every year. The project is currently in the schematic design phase, with LaRose explaining next steps include seeking funding.
And that will come from all levels of government and the private sector. And so later this summer, we plan to launch a private sector capital campaign here in Thunder Bay. And again, back to that schematic design, we know that our design is sound, our numbers are sound, and then we'll be ready to launch into that campaign midsummer.
Science North is still eyeing Pool 6 as its preferred location. And if all goes well, shovels could be in the ground by 2025, with the center opening in 2027. Also during the meeting, the approval of a $5.7 million roadwork contract. It includes the full rehabilitation of stretches of Arthur Street and Dawson Road, with a major portion of Memorial Avenue approved conditionally. That work could be put on hold if the city doesn't receive provincial and federal funding. City Engineering Director Kayla Dixon explains the work will go beyond major roadways.
We've got arterials and collectors being resurfaced through this contract, as well as residential streets. There are several streets that are specifically named in the report, including Ford Street, Wren Court, Lardon Court, McLeod Street, and Picton, which are being renewed as far as residential.
Council also unanimously approved the Downtown Fort William Renewal Plan, which pushes for more aggressive development in the South Core. It offers a range of goals, including attracting a post-secondary campus, adding housing developments, and making the area more attractive to pedestrians and businesses. Vasilios Bellos, TVT News.
Also during last night's council meeting, there was a debate regarding whether to sell off Hill Court Estates, a city-owned trailer park off Roslyn Road. Council tasked administration with writing up a report with options, but not everyone was on board with the idea. The 89-unit trailer park makes the city around $160,000 a year in net profit. The idea to sell it was brought forward by Councillor Trevor Gertuga, who believes the property could sell for about $3 million. There were concerns from some councillors, though, about how a sale would affect the residents. Gertuga stresses this move isn't meant to take people from their homes.
This would not be pulling the carpet out from anybody. No one's going to sell. No, we're not turning around and selling people's homes on them. So I want to get that clear. I don't want misinformation out there, because that's not what's happening. We're not going to be kicking people out of their homes.
I mean, certainly not advocating we go and buy a bunch of properties and sell them. But we have this one that our administration has turned around, and we are getting revenue from it.
Gertuga argues that selling Hill Court Estates is the right move, calling it risky for the city to be in the landlord business. Council voted 8-5 to have city staff explore the options.
Thunder Bay's new police chief designate attended his first police board meeting today.
And the police service is projecting it will go over budget again this year, largely due to personnel costs. The police board itself is breaking even so far. Lee Noonan has those details.
Police Chief Designate Darcy Fleury attended the monthly police board meeting at the Valhalla, accompanied by current Chief Dan Taddeo.
I think it's really important for the first month that I continue on with Dan. That's why he agreed to stay, so that him and I can have some really good connections and understand what's exactly happening and where we've been going and how we progress on some of the pieces that have been asked of us to do. So that's going to be my priority right now.
Fleury says the meeting itself was in line with his expectations. His first impressions of the board and the Thunder Bay Police in general are quite positive. He says he already sees a dramatic improvement in the service's handling of major cases compared to what's detailed in the reports he's been reading. He says continuing to foster a culture of learning as well as supporting the membership will be priorities. He'll also be working to understand systemic racism in the service.
So I really got to get a handle on where we are with that, what we've been doing with it, and really there's no tolerance for it. So we have to really, I have to really understand what the landscape is and what the scope of it is. Like, is it that drastic, or is it something that we can manage to address? Like, it is a priority, so we'll address it right away. And how do we get to the end result of eliminating that in the force?
In the meantime, quarterly variance reports are in. The board itself says their budget is balanced after going more than 150% over budget last year.
Last year we had things take place that are difficult to predict in terms of activity that requires legal counsel, for example. We did increase the budget in anticipation of the level of activity that we normally see, and so far it's been accurate for us.
The police service, on the other hand, is projecting that this year they'll go $800,000 over their budget, which just saw a $3.5 million increase.
We've carried a number of positions in duplicate, including my own, with Chief Hoth retiring at the end of January, and now with Chief Designate Fleury here. That's one. We have a number of other senior members retiring, and they have unpaid banks that have to now be paid out. We're hoping that some of the officers we hire will mitigate overtime we have to pay out.
Taddeo says those overtime costs are driven in part by a 30% increase in minimum staffing and a roughly 12% absenteeism rate. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
The suspects in 3 different local homicide cases appeared at the Thunder Bay Courthouse yesterday and today.
Kenneth Muniz and Jeremy Miller received their prison sentences after pleading guilty to manslaughter last fall. But Peter Kiash will have to wait a little longer to find out his punishment for second-degree murder. Jonathan Wilson reports.
32-year-old Kenneth Muniz of Neskantaga First Nation appeared before a judge on Monday for sentencing. He's one of 2 people convicted in the 2020 beating death of 31-year-old Christopher Misi Tawagizik that was filmed with a cell phone and shared with others. Muniz was originally charged with second-degree murder, but pleaded guilty in November to the lesser charge of manslaughter. He's now been sentenced to 14 years in prison, but with credit for time served will spend another 10 years behind bars. Another sentencing decision was delivered Tuesday at the Thunder Bay Courthouse. 44-year-old Jeffrey Miller pleaded guilty to manslaughter in December for his role in the 2019 death of Robinson St. Jean on Hilldale Road. The man who killed St. Jean has never been caught, but Miller admitted to facilitating a meeting between St. Jean and a drug dealer named Pitbull and leaving the two alone in his vehicle, knowing that things would turn violent. Miller was sentenced to 6 years in prison. The full details on both cases can be found on tbnewswatch.com. Another homicide suspect who appeared in court Monday was 29-year-old Peter Kiash. He was arrested in October of 2018 following the stabbing death of 32-year-old Irene Barkman at a Dufferin Street residence. A judge found Kiash guilty of second-degree murder in December. That charge carries an automatic life sentence. The Crown is seeking 18 years of parole ineligibility, while the defense is asking for 12. A date has not yet been set for the judge to make a ruling. Jonathan Wilson, TBT News.
Today marked day 2 of the inquest into the 2017 death of 56-year-old Moses Beaver.
This was the first day of witness testimony, and the 5-member jury was able to hear from health experts who were in contact with Beaver in the days leading up to his death. Jessa Clement reports.
Renowned woodland artist Moses Beaver had been experiencing a mental health crisis in Nibinamik before he was placed under arrest by officers with the Anishinaabe Police Service and then transferred to the Thunder Bay District Jail. He died at the regional hospital on February 13, 2017, after being transferred from the jail. The first witness at the inquest was Paul Hesch, a nurse at the Nibinamik Health Center, who helped treat Beaver 1 month before his death. NAN Deputy Grand Chief Anna Betty Achnipanescum attended the inquest to show support to the family and community, as well as those who have died in similar situations.
I have a vast interest in terms of the lack of resources and services for individuals that are struggling with mental health issues. And in this particular case, it was quite obvious that there was a lack of resources and services for Moses Beaver.
Hesh stated that due to Beaver's mental health crisis, he needed to be evacuated from the community, either by medevac or normal plane, to Thunder Bay, where he would be properly treated. Ashni Finescom says it's concerning how much has to go into getting residents of remote communities adequate health care.
It's very disturbing to hear about the policies and procedures in terms of just getting someone transferred out of the community into a medical facility. Because as you know, in our communities, we don't have the resources and the services to be able to help someone, especially in this case.
The inquest is expected to last a total of 3 weeks, with the 5 jury members hearing from more than 30 witnesses, with the goal to understand the events that led to Beaver's death, as well as make recommendations aimed at preventing future deaths from occurring in similar circumstances. Jessa Clement, TBT News.
Hydro One made an announcement this morning to reveal its findings on a proposed alternative route for the Waasigan transmission line. Suggested as a compromise by Kaministiqua's Neighbors on the Line committee, the proposed alternate route was compared in an analysis against Hydro One's preferred route. 4 categories were considered: natural environment, Indigenous values, socio-economic environment, and technical considerations and costs. And although the preferred route is still just that, Hydro One spokesperson Sunny Karanakaran offered reassurances, saying planned changes to that preferred route mean that no homeowners will have to move.
The preliminary preferred route still remains as the preferred option. We've been looking at options and solutions, and what we can share with you today is that nobody along the route will be displaced from their home. Right? So we've got solutions by working with the community, whereby through a combination of refinements on the route and through technical solutions, that everyone that chooses to stay with their homes is able to do so once the new transmission line is built.
The Neighbors on the Line met with Hydro One officials in Kaministiquia late this afternoon. We'll have their reaction to the changes on tomorrow's NewsHour.
The Thunder Bay Shelter House has received a much-needed financial boost. Matawa First Nations management announced a $20,000 investment today as an emergency interim measure to prevent the service reduction that the shelter is considering. Shelter House Executive Director Cal Rankin says they're currently facing a staffing and funding crisis that is threatening their core services. He says it's due to a rise in complex people accessing their services and a lack of resources to fill the need. Matawa Board President Rosemary Muniz says along with a $20,000 donation, they're issuing a call for action to the Ford government to address emergency shelter funding in this region and fill in the gaps for the growing number of individuals experiencing homelessness.
Well, turning to weather now, Mitch, the sunshine was a welcome change today, melting a lot of that snow that we got yesterday.
We definitely needed it, especially after all the snow we saw in Thunder Bay, but it was melting very fast, and the temperature is going to drop tonight, which could cause some icy roads, so just a heads up. Today, though, like Ryan was saying, was nicer throughout the day, reaching up to a high of 5, colder in the morning with a low of -5, feeling like -11 with that wind chill, but the sun came out, a lot of that snow melting. The wind was up from the northwest, gusting from 16 to 31 kilometers an hour, and other than the early flurries, we did see sun and some clouds throughout the area. Now, as we head out west, obviously that storm that we saw here in Thunder Bay is pushing farther east. So the west, pretty clear throughout the day. Temperatures a lot warmer in Fort Frances, up to 8, with similar temperatures in Kenora and Dryden. Saw plenty of sunshine. They could see a little bit of flurries making their way in later tonight, while farther northwest, it is a lot warmer throughout the day. A little colder in Red Lake, however, at 5 degrees. They were pretty sunny throughout the day as well. A little bit of clouds rolling in late, but that's all they're going to see. Similar temperatures in Sioux Lookout, while colder down to 1 in Pickle Lake currently. Now, as we move farther east, that storm system was playing a factor throughout the day. They saw plenty of snow that has tapered off at the moment. Armstrong sitting currently at 3. They could see flurries tonight. However, temperatures down to -2 in Greenstone, but right now they are just seeing clouds in the area. Same could be said as we move to Sault Ste. Marie with a temperature of -1. Also seeing snow throughout the day with a chance of flurries tonight. Now, as for Thunder Bay, we do get a break from that snow. Temperatures are going to be fairly cold, down to -7, feeling like -10. So all the snow that didn't fully melt could freeze overnight, which could cause some problems. We are going to see clear skies, however, throughout the day. The wind also gusting from the north-northwest from 11 to 26 kilometers an hour. And even though the storm that brought all the snow is pushing farther east, there's another storm coming from the west that could bring even more snow. I'll have that in just a second.
Well, I knew we were going to have to get to the bad news at some point. Thanks a lot, Mitch. Well, there's some good news when it comes to inflation. It cooled to about 4.3% last month. We'll have all the details when your Tuesday News Hour continues right after this.
Summer, 2.5% by the end of the year and 2% by the end of 2024.